Secure your tinfoil hats, buckle down tight, and hold on loosely as we soar over the rocky tops of the La Platas on a Rocky Mountain high, get sucked into the vortex of the Four Corners, and settle down snugly at mile marker 420 in colorful Colorado. It is Saturday, February 8th, Sunday, February 9th, for those of you across the pond and beyond. Welcome to We Are Paradox Media's Late Night in the Rockies. I'm so glad you guys can join us this evening. Even though we are 22 minutes fashionably late, we had some crazy tech issues going on, but hey, we got it all worked out through some troubleshooting. So I'm super excited about the show. I'm your host, TessaTNT, and I hope you guys had an awesome week. You didn't work too hard, and you have a rockin' weekend going on so far. Thank you again for joining us tonight on one of our many outlets. You may also find us on Spreaker, Periscope under TessaTNT, Twitter, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iTunes, iHeartRadio, CastBox, Tumblr, Udno, and Destin America. KW is also co-host for NYBS Radio show alongside Gary Robusto, the founder of both groups. Angel Ray hails from a small town in Pennsylvania. Miss Ray's spiritual roots run deep within her heritage, and she is a lifelong student of paranormal, spirituality, and other supernatural beings. With Angel's passion for and love of writing, she dove headfirst into the romance erotic scene and is taking it by storm. You can find her other titles under Angelica Knight. You guys, welcome so much. Thank you so much for joining me, and man, we have some crazy troubleshooting stuff going on tonight. We're fashionably late.
Better late than never.
That's right. And everybody was like at the edge of their seat. Huh?
Yeah.
Kenny, are you still there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Oh. I keep losing you, Tessa.
Oh, no.
I see you're up in the corner. And now there's a little telephone in the middle of my screen. I don't know what that is. I didn't touch nothing. I swear. My hands were under my thighs.
I'll turn my camera off and turn it back on. So we already so far have had some really crazy stuff happening. I was talking about the flickering of my lights, which while I was reading went off and now they're back on. But you were saying, Angel, that you've had some stuff like that going on as well. I don't know. Is it paranormal, supernatural? What the crack is going on?
I don't know. I don't know if I'd call it paranormal, but I think when energies, I think you have a lot of energy. I know I have a lot of energy. So it just could be that. I mean, it's not the first time this has happened, and my energy gets blamed for it when it happens. So
yeah, Suzanne Cool just said, "Angel, you broke it."
Yeah, well, it's my first Skype interview, so
yeah, generally it's me. So, we'll start with Kenny. Kenny, how did you get into the field of paranormal encrypted? Did you have an experience that got you interested in that, or were you just interested in stories? Like, how did that actually work out for you?
Yeah, so pretty much growing up, as far back as I can remember, I loved monsters. I was big into King Kong, Godzilla, Wolfman, different characters like that, and it just stuck with me as I grew up and grew older, and as I don't want to say matured, but as I got older, I started looking into where these stories came from, and I really kind of at that point in time kind of dived into folklore, and I've just always loved legends and different types of cryptid monsters and the what if and the unknown. So that's pretty much how I got into it. Other than that, it was like I've never had any experiences. I've never, well, I mean, I've had experiences, but I've never seen like a Sasquatch. I've never actually seen like a dog man. I've been out in the woods with the NYBS and, had some, strange things happen that I couldn't explain. So there's definitely something going on in the woods. I can't say for sure exactly what my experiences were and what I can attribute that to, but with that said, it's been a long love of just loving monsters and creatures and kind of being the weird kid in the class, I guess.
High five. We can be a club. So I know the love of monsters and such. Did you ever have any sort of paranormal experience that kind of opened your eyes or your mind to certain things? Or was it just the stories?
No, it's always been the stories, and the folklore, the legends, and when I originally, like you had said at the intro, I'm from Vermont. Every year they had an event called the Haunted Forest, and every 20 feet you'd stop and somebody was there, like telling a story of some type of monster or some type of Halloween legend. And at a very, very young age, I went there and went through that tour, and that kind of stuck with me from there. Again, I've never had like an actual experience, a face-to-face type of encounter with anything. But the only experiences I've ever had, again, in the woods where, the founder of the NYBS did wood knocks, which is common in the Bigfoot world. And then like 45 seconds later, and we've got it on recording as well, something knocked back. And I mean, we were literally out in the middle of nowhere. I mean, there was no cell phone signal. There was nobody else out there. So I've had experiences like that, but I've never actually had any type of like face-to-face experience or anything, that kind of pushed me in this direction due to, hearing something or seeing something.
And you're
so, yeah,
also,
I'm kind of boring.
No, I don't think so. Like, okay, so people get weirded out because I invite them on. I don't talk to them beforehand because I like to keep it fresh. If I ask you a question beforehand, I might not ask it afterwards. So I kind of troubleshoot that way. And I'm like, okay, I'll just talk to them 5 minutes before. I won't ask them any questions. And then they'll come on and it'll be all good and we'll have an awesome time. But some people are just like, okay, what's going on? But you are also a writer. What books have you written?
I had my first national release with a publisher back in 2014. It was a young reader's chapter book called Kevin in the Upside Down Halloween, and did very, very well. It was about three friends who they're in third grade. They come into school one day and they have a substitute teacher, and they don't understand why, and the substitute teacher ends up telling the whole class that their teacher, who was pregnant, ended up having the baby early. And they, of course, they're in third grade. They never heard of this. It's a couple days before Halloween, and the lady's last name was Witchner. So they think that she's actually kidnapped the teacher to take over the school, to eventually take over the town and the world. So they go on a kind of like a hijinks kind of caper to go out and get proof to save the teacher and save the world. So that was my 2014 release, and did very well with that. Things in life kind of popped up and kind of got in the way of continuing to write. Ended up leaving the publisher that I was with, the agent that I had, and then in the 2019, I'd been writing all along, but in 2019, I started, talking to different agents again, and I just didn't like what they had to say to me. So I started, kind of representing myself and being in sales and marketing and business. I was able to do that. And I came across Dark Moon Press and went on there. saw that, they're not as big as like the 5 main publishers out there, which is what I wanted. And they had some fantastic authors that I'd heard of signed to them. So I reached out and ended up signing with them. So the 15th of this month, I've got 2 books coming out. One, another young reader's chapter book. It's similar characters, same characters from my original one, except the main character, his name is Stanley Riker. It's called Stanley Riker and the Bigfoot Runaround. And what it is the 3 friends, they're in 3rd grade, but they go to a camp for the weekend. It's their favorite camp. It's called Camp Daybreak. And as they get there, they sit down. One of the counselors talks about how the camp could be potentially closed down because they've had all kinds of Bigfoot sightings. So, of course, the 3 friends, they pull together. They come up with a plan to catch the Bigfoot, to report to the sheriff, and save their camp. So that's the first one, Stanley Riker and the Bigfoot Runaround. Second one that's coming out, because, again, I've been writing for the last, 3 years without dealing with any publishers or any agents. It's called Folklore Frankensteins. And pretty much what this book does is it covers all 50 states. It talks about history of the state. It talks about some celebrities from the state. It talks about like a popular monster from the state. Like West Virginia is like the Mothman, different things like that. Like, even though Champ, which is in Lake Champlain, pretty much kind of represents New York and Vermont, it really seems like Vermont kind of has like a adopted Champ. So I do different things like that in the book, as well as I also highlight a Native American tribe from that state, and just, give some facts on it. So it goes through all 50 states. And then the last part of each chapter is a Bigfoot sighting that I was recorded and expressed to me with the details, and put it in the book. And so again, that's Folklore Frankensteins. And both those come out the 15th of this month.
That's awesome. And I love books like it. I feel like it builds on not only the health of your mind, but your intelligence and your imagination, being able to read these books and see these pictures in your mind. And so I really look up to you and thank you for writing these books for especially our younger generation. And they're going through so much, like social media and everything. It's really a hard time. I can't even imagine going through this as a kid back when I was growing up. Like, going to school was really hard enough as it is. And now they have social media. A lot of them go on there, even though they're not old enough, and they're going through all these things. But what a wonderful place to go to read a book and be able to escape that reality and get into a book and be able to see these pictures in your mind and kind of try to relate to that person or find interest or intrigue in a certain subject.
Yeah, and you nailed it too when you said how hard it is for kids nowadays, because, in school, like when I went, if there was any type of bullying or anything like that, I mean, at the end of the day, you went home, you still thought about it, but you got away from it. Now, again, with social media, it's like everywhere. And to have some type of out to be able to forget about it and just everything that's going on is I really hope that my books are able to do that and take somebody from where they are to a different place.
And then we have Miss Angel Ray, which for some reason I was thinking Angel May. I don't know if it was Rod Stewart's Maggie May song going through my head or what. And I even went back to look at the event and I was like, man, did I spell it wrong there too? But I had it correct. So for some reason I was thinking Angel May. What the crack is going on there? But Angel, thanks so much for coming in with us and dealing with our crazy paranormal, I like to call it paratechnical issues.
Yeah, that's about what it is too.
Yeah, and we were talking while we're trying to get Kenny in here. We're like, man, what's going on? And it was crazy because it was actually on my end. For some reason, my mic switched over to something else. I had not changed it. I could hear you. You couldn't hear me. And we're trying to troubleshoot on your end. Had I just looked over here. But I didn't think of it because I didn't change anything. So I'm just glad we got it worked out. 22 minutes late. Even numbers I can deal with. But we still have a whole group of people here just hanging on every word. So I like to know, when was your first paranormal experience? What got you into this field and keeps you here today?
I was 8 years old, actually. When I saw my first apparition, I was 8. I was in my mom's room, and I was getting ready to go through her jewelry box, which shouldn't have been doing. And I saw like this cream-colored mist form in the corner of her room. And I'm looking at it, and eventually, I was a kid, I was 8. I couldn't tell you how long it took to manifest, but at some point, there was a man standing there with his arms folded, and he's just looking at me with like this mean look on his face. I was out the door. Didn't know who it was, didn't know what was going on. I knew my mom had always talked about spirits and ghosts, up to that point, but I had never seen anything myself. So she was at the store, she comes home, and for whatever reason, I worried that she was going to find out that I was in her room trying to mess with her jewelry. So I confessed. And she looks at me and she says, well, what made you tell me? And I told her what I saw, knowing that she wasn't going to think I was crazy because I knew she, believed in it. I just didn't know what I saw or who I saw. So I described to her, the man and what he looked like and everything. And she's just looking at me, not in disbelief, but kind of like shocked. And I said, did I do something wrong? And she said, hold on a minute. She leaves me sitting on the couch. She goes in, she calls her twin sister. I could hear her on the phone. She says, Janet, he didn't die yet, did he? So I'm like, okay, what's going on? So she comes back out and she says, Ange, she says, you saw your grandfather, but he's not dead yet. And that night, this was probably early evening, that night at 10:12 p.m., he died. He was in the hospital. He was sick. I did not know him. My mom didn't really take me around him because she didn't have a very good childhood with him. So she kept me from him. But the fact that I saw his spirit, or whatever you want to call it, prior to him dying, my mom kind of knew, I had the same abilities, but they were a little bit more powerful than what she had been dealing with all her life. So at that point, it just kind of took off. She took me under her wing. She had a twin sister and an older sister that took me under their wings and taught me what I needed to do, and it just grew from there. So I've always been a part of the paranormal.
So who were they talking about as far as he didn't die yet? Who was that?
Well, like I said, my mom knew my grandfather was in the hospital. But she had called my Aunt Janet because it was her shift to stay at the hospital to keep an eye and let the other, sisters know if something went down with my grandfather. So when she went in the kitchen to call, she called Aunt Janet, called my grandfather's room at the hospital and said, Janet, did he die yet? And no, he hadn't died yet. He didn't die till 10:12 that night. So that was my very first experience. And then, yeah, I've had some crazy things happen since then. So.
And I was actually messaging Kenny, I believe. Maybe it was another author. I don't know. This week has been so crazy. Like, every single one of my kids have been sick. I've been getting about 2 hours of sleep each night. So if I go cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, bear with me. But when you have those experiences, it's amazing. And to be open like that, I think it's kind of genetic. It goes from grandparents to parents to children, and I have that same experience with mine, and I don't know. I'm not afraid of death, but at the same time, I'm afraid of it being around me. And my daughter Nova had pertussis as a baby. She almost died. Like, I'd have to pull over and pull her out of the car seat and pound on her back because she turned purple. And everything that comes around, she not only catches it, but she gets it tenfold. It's kind of like, doing a spell or something. And so my other kids have gotten it and gotten over it, but she, like, once she goes quiet, I have to go in and check on her to make sure she's still breathing. Like, are you still here? Because it's just, I don't know, so much stress. But it seems like genetics, once you have that paranormal experience, or even if it's something that you've read and you latch onto, it kind of changes your genetic makeup, and it's pretty intriguing. And I don't want to cut Kenny out at this point, but I'm intrigued by what you're saying as far as other experiences. What other paranormal experiences have you had throughout your life, Angel, that have kept you on this path?
Oh, wow. I mean, just my mom, teaching me. I was blessed because you hear so many people say when they were kids they would see things, and their parents would say that, no, it's not there, or convince them that they weren't seeing and hearing what they were. I didn't have that. I was blessed. I had a mom that taught me from the get-go. And, we would go to cemeteries and things like that. But as I got older and started doing actual investigations, I've seen, there really isn't much that I haven't seen. I've seen apparitions. I've seen shadow people. I've seen, they call them creepers. I don't like that word.
Or watchers.
I think sometimes, spirits don't always have a choice in how they can manifest. So, if they're on the ground and they're crawling around, maybe they're in the process of manifesting or coming out, of being an apparition. We don't know. So I don't like to call them creepers, but I've seen them on the ceiling. I've seen them climbing walls and crawling on the floor. And, but I have yet to see anything that has spooked me to the point that I question what I'm doing with the paranormal. I'm so immune to it and desensitized from it because of getting into it at such an early age that, I mean, I've got spirit photography pictures. I've got EVPs. I mean, I was just contacted not too long ago to submit some of evidence that I collected at a location that I was at, and they want to use it for a TV show. And it's because they know that if I say I have evidence, I have evidence. It's not, a dust orb. It's not a bug flying across the screen. I mean, if I consider it evidence, it's evidence. It's not half-assed. In other words, like, I won't submit anything unless I know there is no way to debunk it. I'm kind of, I'm very, I don't know what's the word, very, I'm very pragmatic when it comes to evidence. I don't just put anything out there, so.
Yeah, you're very open and into the situation. You won't put it out unless you know for sure something's going on. Other people might poo-poo it or whatever, but for a fact this is something that's not normal. It's paranormal. Even though the paranormal to me is normal, dealing with it my whole life, you're just like, hey, this is something that somebody could take that doesn't have this experience, and they can actually make something out of it.
Right. Yep. Yeah. So I'm very funny about it. I get on, sometimes tangents on my Facebook page about, some people that put these videos out and they're just so staged and they're fake, and I try really hard to bite my tongue, but sometimes I just can't handle it. Like, why? There's so much out there to learn and interact with it. You don't have to fake it. I mean, it's just ridiculous. But then again, I'm somebody that can connect with them. I see them, I hear them, I smell them, I sense them. You know, they interact with me very frequently, and any of the team members that have worked with me with my books and everything, they can tell you I'm like a conduit. I don't mean to do it. Spirits just know I'm a safe haven. You know, I don't go into like a prison and automatically play judge and executioner, and yeah, you're a bad person because you were in prison. They're dead. What's the point of holding a grudge against somebody that had nothing to do with me, and they're gone? Like,
Or
you
judging
know what I
them.
mean? So
Like, that's not our
yeah,
place. And like you're saying,
right,
like, making up these different stories, I feel like takes more energy than I even have. You know?
right,
Why take
right.
that time and energy to do this
Yeah,
and just share what you experience?
right.
So Jen, you're in Pennsylvania right now? Or are you from
Yeah, I'm in PA.
Pennsylvania?
Yep, I'm from PA.
That's where my bestie's from.
Oh,
And
really?
also Christopher in the chat room's from there as well. But I just wanted to say, like, Kenny, when we think as Americans of New York, we think of the Statue of Liberty, where all of our people came, like as far as my great grandparents and others came to come to the free world. You know, we think of the Statue of Liberty, the Twin Towers, 9/11, so many different things. Nobody really thinks of Bigfoot because we think of New York as this really populous place with all these tall buildings, but there are forests there.
Oh, absolutely. Ironically, there's a little town up north from me called Whitehall, New York, and it's actually in the Bigfoot community considered to be kind of like the epicenter and the go-to on the East Coast. Washington is, I guess, on the West Coast. Many people say that, hey, that's the hangout. That's like your main area. On the East Coast, ironically enough, it's Whitehall, New York. It's probably about an hour and a half north from where I am, and it's been on different shows. There's been all kinds of sightings. They have a festival every year. A lot of people have heard of the show Finding Bigfoot. They actually came out to Whitehall, New York. Ironically, you're right when you say that. But at the same time, anybody that's actually in the community and follows any type of Sasquatch activity or anything like that has heard of Whitehall, New York.
And we all originated on the East Coast, so I assume, even though it's not out there as hardcore, that all these sightings started on the East Coast. I could see people that came out here to make a new life witnessing this. I'm sure some of the original stories of Bigfoot actually resonated or started in New York a long time ago.
Oh yeah, I mean it's just, I mean sightings they go back hundreds of years. That's one of the reasons why in Folklore Frankenstein I bring up Native American tribes, because the majority of like the sightings originated with the Native Americans, and they pretty much kind of taught us about them, and then from there we kind of ran and kind of did our own thing. But yeah, I mean, there's tons of forest out here. The Adirondacks, I mean, stretches for miles and miles. Ironically, if for anybody who's familiar with Whitehall, they actually passed a law a few years back where it's actually illegal to shoot or try to actually harm or kill a Sasquatch if you saw one.
That's interesting because a friend of mine has repeatedly told me, and I don't know if he remembers, he's had about 5 heart attacks, so he does repeat himself a lot, but Washington State, with their national book talking about the state, all the different creatures that are there, different laws, so on and so forth, protects Bigfoot from shooting, so on and so forth. If you shoot or try to harm Bigfoot, there are penalties against you. That's not only there, but Oregon, and believe it or not, Texas. So there's 3 states that do that, now 4. You're saying New York has done that as well?
Certain towns have done it. I don't know that New York is if we can call it a safe state for Bigfoot. I know certain towns will actually kind of put a law in place, put citations in place for anything along the line of trying to hurt or kill or anything like that. So, yeah, I mean, there's definitely places where states have done it. I don't know at this point in time. I've not heard that the whole state of New York has done it, but there's definitely there's definitely towns that have actually put a law in place to protect a Sasquatch. Which when I first heard about it, it kind of blew my mind, because it's like, how do you actually get people together to actually do that? There's a gentleman, his name's Paul, and he actually lives out there, and I guess he went to the town council and brought up the idea, and they've had many sightings, so the town looked at it as in, like, there's been so many sightings, why not? And a lot of them have been very credible sightings as well. There's been many police officers that have actually reported that they've actually witnessed what they would say would be a Sasquatch, along with many other people that would be considered important in that town. So it's just really mind-boggling that there's a creature that we haven't been able to 100% say exists. We can't say it's in the books, but yet there's enough evidence and there's enough sightings. There's enough people coming forth where there are places that are actually putting laws in place and signing into laws to protect them. So again, it blows my mind. But at the same time, it's one of those things where there's got to be something to it. There can't not be.
Yeah, and this book, for Washington State was federally funded. And, if it was state, and like you said, small counties in certain states do take notice and do put it out there, hey, this thing actually exists and we need to protect it. Because I think we are closely related, and I think it may be, during the Ice Age, different tribes came together, some mated, some fought, different things happened. I think they're still here and surviving and trying to live their own life and survive in this crazy, chaotic world that we're in. But, other people have other stories like, them and aliens are in league. Some people say Bigfoot and fairies are in league. Like the fairy is the brain, the Bigfoot is the brawn. And I've seen different evidence according to that. But it's amazing when the federal government comes in and says, yes, this is actually a creature that needs to be supported and protected. And they put it into the atlas for that state. It's like very intriguing and interesting, and lets me know this is in fact reality. These do actually exist, even though they don't, like Angel and I were talking earlier when we're trying to troubleshoot and get this stuff worked out. They are actually a species. They do actually exist, and it's pretty interesting how that all works out, especially federally. Once the federal government admits to it, like, how do you really deny it? Except for the government is hard to follow sometimes.
Yeah, I think, what? I think it's more sad that laws have to be put in place to protect. I mean, that saddens me, but it doesn't shock me, but it just shows you how man's mentality is, that we have to tell these morons, don't go in the woods and shoot these things. Like, it's sad that we have to tell them that. It really bothers me. Yeah.
Well, and
I'm
we've
sorry.
seen different cases where it's like shoot first and ask questions later. And I actually
Yeah.
saw a study where a guy saw two Bigfoot and he shot one and then he went and saw it and he saw how humane it was as far as the facial features and the structures and everything. It was like very human and he felt really, really bad. He did bury it because he feared the law, even though there were no laws in that state. But he feared that he was going to get in trouble because was a very human individual and there was a mate along with it and he was afraid to go out into that country anymore, fearing what would happen to him as far as like retribution or whatever. But he felt really bad and guilty because he's like, wow, he thought it was one thing. Then once he went and saw it and buried it, he felt like it was very human. And it is very closely related to us, except for I think the arms and the legs are a little longer and lankier. And they're hairier, of course, unless you're looking at my dad, who passed away about 15 years ago. He was very hairy and wore a size 14. And I remember living on Miami Beach and maintenance came in. They're like, holy shit, Bigfoot lives here. And I'm like, no, that's just my dad. But they are.
Vikings believed that, there were not giants like we would think with, Zeus and what have you, but there were giant people that the Vikings, believed in. And I just wonder, if, like you said, there are hairier people out there. And, if these creatures are living up in the mountains and I think, evolution for them, that could be helping them survive. That we everybody does it. We adapt. Maybe maybe they didn't start out with all that fur, but because of where they choose to live, maybe that's why the fur came. I mean, we don't know. I mean,
well, to keep
that's
them
just my
warm,
theory.
perhaps they didn't start off as hairy, but being the way they live, their genetics make it to where they get hairier and hairier so they can survive in this certain environment.
Right. Yeah, because if you live up in the mountains, it's pretty cold up there. I mean, yeah. I that's just one of my theories on it. So.
What are your thoughts, Kenny?
Yeah. Well, it's one of those things where there's so many different theories. There's so many different ways to look at it. And I mean, I get bombarded with, different questions and, and one of the biggest things that I try to say and preach in this community of Bigfooters is, I'm trying to like be as polite about it as possible. There's a lot of people that are, because they don't understand it, but they want to kind of call themselves experts in it. So what they'll do is they'll kind of like come up with like different theories and different reasonings behind it because they want to believe. And when you want to believe something, there's people that'll put so much into that just to kind of feed that need. I'm the type of person where I kind of want to know more than I want to believe. So that way I can still kind of keep a healthy, I could be, again, keep a healthy skepticism of the subject and what's going on. Because again, I'll get bombarded by people all the time that will be like, well, I'm an expert in this. So they're paranormal as in they're ghosts. I'll get people that'll say I'm an expert in it. And, kind of like what you had mentioned, Tessa, about, they're aliens, all this different, these different theories that get thrown my way. And, again, I'll get bombarded with these questions. And my approach to Sasquatch is to continue to investigate, research, and hopefully have an encounter. And as we do that, and as it, more people come out with encounters, and we get better pictures, we get better videos, we'll have better answers then. But and Angel, I'm not really, like, I don't do as much in the paranormal side of things, because that crap really scares the hell out of me. Yeah. Anything ghost or spirit related. But do you, on the paranormal side, do you get a lot of people that kind of call themselves experts in a sense?
Anytime I hear somebody say they're an expert, that's when I get red flags, because under the umbrella of the paranormal, there is no expert, because we don't have the answers and we're still trying to find them.
Yep. If somebody comes at me and tries to tell me they're an expert, they get their feelings hurt, because I typically laugh and just kind of walk away, because it's nonsense. I don't sugarcoat things. I just don't. And call it what you want. Call me a bitch, whatever. I'm just
whatever helps you get through the day.
Forward when it comes to paranormal. I'm just, Nobody has.
Good. I just that's not something. You and me have talked before, and that's not something that would come up. But it's the same thing in the Bigfoot community. Again, I get people that come to me all the time, and they'll submit a picture, to me of a forest with a red circle around it, and I'll be like, okay, well, what am I looking at? They're like, you don't see that, and I'm like, no, I don't know. I don't see what you're seeing.
Right.
And and then they'll just, at that point in time, they'll go off and talk about, well, I'm an expert. You don't know what you're looking at, this and that. And again, I've always said, how do you call yourself an expert, or consider yourself an expert in a subject where there really is no accountability, and you can kind of make it up as you go?
Right.
And that's the biggest thing for me. I had one gentleman that he sent a couple things to me and asked me some questions, and he ended up saying, well, the reason we haven't found a Bigfoot or caught one yet is because they're paranormal, they're ghosts. And I said, okay, well, I didn't argue with him. I don't get into arguments with people on this stuff, and I told him, I said, that's interesting. And because I said it was interesting, and I didn't say, wow, you're right. Like, he was going off. He's like, I'm an expert. I've been doing this for 30 years. And, and then he kind of, tried to belittle me. So I ended up saying, okay, I respect that you've been doing this for 30 years. But if you call yourself an expert, unfortunately, if you've been doing this for 30 years, you're an expert at finding nothing.
Right.
And it's again, in this day and age, I don't know as much about the paranormal ghost spirit community, but I'll tell you, in the Bigfoot community, everybody wants to be an expert, and everybody is an expert.
Paranormal community is a hot mess. It is just, it's filled with egotistical, just, they want to all be famous. They all want to be on TV. They all want to provide the best evidence. It's so tiring. I honestly, I'm very peculiar with who I spend my time with when I'm working on locations and everything, because I just can't. I've literally kicked people out of locations because they provoked, or I caught them faking evidence, and I just can't. The community and the paranormal, there really isn't much. There's a small circle that are really truly in it to help, not just the living, but the dead. It's people like us that I'm not looking for fame and fortune. I'm not trying to post 20 pictures on my Facebook page and expect everybody to look at them and see the ghost, because it doesn't work that way. And
right.
in 30 years, well, a little bit over 30 years of taking pictures from locations, and I'm talking thousands. I have to be well over 10,000 pictures, and maybe 20 out of 10,000 pictures had something in them that I know was paranormal. But that's nothing compared to 10,000 pictures.
And like Kenny
It
was
just
saying,
is.
This person sent these pictures and they're like, don't you see it? But a lot of times there's pareidolia, whether it's spirits or Bigfoot or whatnot. And you'll have a bunch of leaves or whatever, and people are seeing faces in them, which I see them all the time in leaves and stuff, or clouds or whatever. You see human structures. And like you were saying, Kenny, as far as Bigfoot being ghosts, like, I've wondered that when you get these fuzzy pictures of Bigfoot, I'm like, well, perhaps could that be moving really quickly, or could it be a ghost? Because I've seen spirits of not only humankind, but animals. I've seen spirit cats. I used to live with one.
Yep.
When I'm driving down the road, a spirit deer actually ran in front of me this last year. And the first part of it looked like a real deer, but the last part of it was like a streak of cream color. And I'm like, that was a freaking deer ghost, So perhaps these fuzzy things of Bigfoot could be because it's moving so quickly and it's used to what it's doing. Or perhaps is this a ghost of a Bigfoot that somebody captured? It's hard to say. And like you're saying, these people are like, well, I'm an expert. That to me is a red flag. Like, I have been in the paranormal field all my life. I didn't start professionally until 2012, but I will never, ever proclaim to be an expert because there's no way to do that. Not today, in today's world. It's so difficult.
Well, and the other thing, too, is that, when we look at what it means to be an expert, I mean, again, there's accountability to being an expert in a subject. And if somebody says to me, hey, you know what, I'm an expert in grizzly bears, well, there's accountability. Okay, well, you can really find whether somebody's an expert in grizzly bears. You can look at degrees. You can look at all these different aspects of it. But again, when it comes to a subject where there is no accountability and it's kind of a free for all, again, I mean, we talk about red flags popping up, and that's a huge red flag. And when I'm talking with different different researchers, different investigators, and different crypto folks that are out, looking for different, not just Bigfoot, like Dogman, different types of creatures. There's a lot of inconsistencies in what a lot of people are saying too, which really jumps out as a huge red flag. And if you're in any type of chat group or any type of like paranormal group or Bigfoot group, Dogman group, you kind of start seeing the trends of red flags. There's a few groups that I'm with, and there's three groups that you fall in the Bigfoot crypto world. You either fall in, you're a skeptic, you're a believer, and then there's a category of the knower. And what I'm finding in these groups is somebody will ask a question, just ask like a simple question, and somebody will, or I guess maybe I'll say 95% of them will come back with an actual answer. And what I mean by that is,
so it's resolute.
What's that?
So like they come back with an answer, like it's resolute, like that's the answer. It's the only answer it could be.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. Sorry, yeah. Okay. Yeah, no, absolutely. They'll come back. This is what it is. And it's kind of discouraging because I go on there all the time and I'll say, I don't know, and that really should be what our answer is. And the longer that you're in some of these groups and seeing it, you kind of know the ones to kind of stay away from. And, I do a lot of scrolling, and, I don't comment very much. I very rarely ever comment, because it usually just starts a fight,
right?
Which is unfortunate. Like, for instance, there was this young lady in one group that said, "Hey, I just, I believe, I love Bigfoot, but how come we've never found any bones? How come we've never found any bodies?"
Maybe they have
And
certain rituals of burial and such. You never know.
Right. Well, the thing is, everybody came in with why. Not like, well, hey, this is a possibility. Everybody came in with, well, it's because of this. And then when somebody said something different, the other person jumped on them. No, it's because of this.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, how do you even know? And then, of course, it always leads to that question of, well, have you ever seen a dead bear in the woods? Have you ever seen a dead animal in the woods? And, unfortunately, I mean, depending on who you're talking to, like, I've seen them. I personally have seen them in the woods. I've seen dead animals in the woods. And, it's like, but in these groups, it's kind of like you kind of can't say that. And then if you go and I hate saying it, because, everybody's kind of like a Google search genius now. And, to try to prove people wrong. It's like, if you go on and you Google, like, have you ever seen like a dead animal in the woods? The only real people that are really saying that you've never seen a dead animal in the woods that are really saying it are like hardcore Bigfoot people.
Well, I've seen certain dead animals, but I've never seen a dead bear or like a dead coyote or whatnot. I don't know if the tribe to the animal or relation to the animal will take it somewhere and probably take solace in it as far as nutrition and such, or perhaps they do some certain burial thing, or who knows what they do. But I've never seen a dead bear. I've seen dead squirrels, dead birds, like different things like that, but never a dead bear, never a dead Bigfoot. So it leaves those different questions. But on that note, you guys, I hate to interrupt because I'm really into this conversation, but we do have to go to our first musical break. This break, we have Britt Casey, who is a Boston, Massachusetts artist with Mr. Cellman, which is kind of like an offshoot from Mr. Phone Man back in the day. And then we have Tracy Cruz from Oakland, California. So we got East Coast and West Coast going on here. You guys don't go anywhere. We'll be right back right after these musical notes.
Hello? I'm trying to call my baby, but it's poor reception, cause she ain't picking up. Hello? Listen, Mr. Operator, I've been up all day and I'm trying to dial my baby's number. See, it only rings straight to the machine. 617. Now I know something must be wrong with this cell phone, cause my baby knows she wouldn't hang up on me. So tell me what's going on. I see, most of the time phone only ring twice. How you doing, boo? Cool, how's your date? Nice. Now she ain't picking up, plus a text her. Put it to your plane, she's the one to get next to. It's not just the way, it's all day with affection. I'm hoping this detection is poor reception. Straight to the machine, mean it's like clicking my car, get connected quick. I'm saying, hey, Mr. Cellular Phone Man, I see there's something wrong with my line. I try to dial my baby's number, but get click every time. Mr. Cellular Phone Man, I see there's something wrong with my line. I try to dial my baby's number, but get click every time. She ain't picking up, yo. I see the phone rings quite a few times before any answer. And I know she's home, well, at least till 3. And I know she's home. No, I don't mean to be any bother operator, but could you just check and connect this call for me? Cause I know she's on. Let's see, the first time I call, I'm like, like maybe she working. And the second time I call, I'm like, little bit hurting. But the third time I call, I'm like, going berserk. And now half a day gone, can't get her on the horn. Usually in the morning, maybe it's something wrong. I mean, she wouldn't take this long to call back. See, we tight like that, she's supposed to be mine. So could you please try it one more time? Hey, Mr. Cellular Phone Man, I see there's something wrong with my line. I try to dial my baby's number, but get click every time. Mr. Cellular Phone Man, I see something wrong with my line. I try to dial my baby's number, but get click every time. Why she ain't picking up, yo? For some reason, it's like she ain't home. Just wanna get my baby on the phone. Now I know that she's there all alone. So can you please hook up my cellular phone? Hey, Mr. Cellular Phone Man, I see there's something wrong with my line. I try to dial my baby's number, but get click every time. Mr. Cellular Phone Man, I see something wrong with my line. I try to dial my baby's number, but get click every time. Mr. Cellular Phone Man, I see there's something wrong with my line. I try to dial my baby's number, but get click every time. Mr. Cellular Phone Man, I see something wrong with my line. I try to dial my baby's number, but get click every time. Why she ain't picking up, yo? Why she ain't picking up, yo? Boy, I don't know what to do. My heart is so confused. In the past, it's been put down, it's been shattered, and then I'm left without any clue to know the real truth about what I found. But with you, I found my common ground. Your love makes me emotional, 'cause you're the one that makes me feel emotional. You make me feel that love is real, 'cause you're the one that makes me feel emotional. Ever since I was young, my mom said
no limit to what your love can do.
I feel chemistry whenever you're close to me, and I cannot explain your energy, 'cause you're pulling me like gravity. It feels so strong, I cannot escape your electricity. This rush keeps flowing through to my veins. This feeling's insane, and I can't explain. I'll never be the same. I will never be the same. Rush keeps flowing through to my veins. This feeling's insane, and I can't explain. I'll never be the same. I will never be the same. Physical attraction holds us like a magnet, and I cling to you like static, and I can't let go. Your love is so dynamic, makes me a fanatic, got me feeling ecstatic. Will my heart come to this rush flowing through to my veins? This feeling's insane, and I can't explain. I'll never be the same. I will never be the same. Rush keeps flowing through to my veins. This feeling's insane, and I can't explain. I'll never be the same. I will never be the same. Rush keeps flowing through to my veins. This feeling's insane, and I can't explain. I'll never be the same. Straight right through your heart. Rush flowing through to my veins. This feeling's insane, and I can't explain. I'll never be the same. I will never be the same. You know what you've done to me. I'm feeling so excited, feeling strong, and I can't fight it. Oh, do you know what you've done to me? Got me feeling so inspired, set my heart and soul on fire. Let's create a love that's strong. Let's make life a happy song. Let's bring joy to everything. Let's enjoy what life brings. Let's create a love that's so strong. Let's make life a happy song. Let's bring joy to everything. Let's enjoy what life brings. This rush keeps flowing through to my veins. This feeling's insane, and I can't explain. I'll never be the same. Ooh, this rush keeps flowing through to my veins. This feeling's insane, and I can't explain. Ooh, I will never be the same.
Your voice is the source,
No.
and I'm the microphone. I receive what you say to me.
I will never find someone else like you. You make me feel so good in your love, like some my heart, like electricity. I will never find
Welcome back, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us tonight on We Are Paradox Media's Late Night in the Rockies. Tonight we have authors Kenny Irish and Angel Ray on, and thank you guys so much for being with us and hanging out and just discussing this topic. Like, there's so many questions and so many different things, so I thank you so much for being here and hanging out with us and educating us with your experiences.
Love being here.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yay! I always love to hear that. So we were talking about Bigfoot and people saying they're ghosts or they could be aliens, which I like to call Allens, those damn Allens and their UFOs. But I mean, they could be so many different things like interdimensional or whatnot, but I think they're just like us, you and I, trying to live their lives and not be bothered by civilization. Like they love what they're doing, how they're living, and they'd rather not deal with us. But there's been so many sightings, especially like here in my area, even people going on the Durango and Silverton narrow gauge railroad and up in the Rockies and such. Like people are having sightings, and one particular one that I didn't witness, but somebody told me. So I worked at a mine up in Rico. We were doing security there, and it used to be a site where people would go and shoot. But we're taking this toxic water out of the mine and putting them in different containers. So we don't want people shooting at that. But the longer we stayed there, the more crazy things happened. And towards the end, there were large boulders being thrown down the side of this mountain into the creek bed. And that's not a bear or a deer, like accidentally shuffling and knocking things down. This is something throwing a large boulder, trying to get you away from their area. Right. We did a paranormal investigation at the Enterprise Bar and Grill in Rico. Everybody's like, what do you want to do tomorrow? And I'm like, I want to go up to the mine, see if I can find Bigfoot tracks, so on and so forth, which I did find tracks. They were hard to see because they were kind of in this gravelly material, but you could still see the impression. So I made a note, with a rock at the big toe, one at the heel, took pictures, took video. I did not see a Bigfoot, but once we went back down to the Enterprise Bar and Grill, there was a mother and daughter there, and they go out on their back porch every morning facing the opposite direction. This is in like a valley of the Rockies. So on the other side, they're sitting there drinking their coffee, smoking, whatnot, and they see not only a Bigfoot, but an albino Bigfoot in a clearing of aspens, which it only took it about 5 to 6 steps to clear this area, which is a very large area, but for it wasn't really. And people think, oh no, there's no albino Bigfoot, but of every creature I know of, there is an albino. And there's also what people know of as the abominable snowman or something other than that. What are your thoughts on albino Bigfoot? Do you think they exist? Or is this just a imaginative thing that two people saw at the same time?
Well, I definitely believe that there definitely could be an albino Bigfoot. Absolutely. I mean, there has been reports of white fur. Absolutely. As far as like abominable snowman and Yeti, a lot of the time people, their understanding is that, and I think a lot of it has to do with the Christmas show, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. They actually, in reality, they have like their fur isn't dark, or isn't light. It's dark. But as far as one with white fur and albino, why not? I mean, I've heard plenty of people say that they've had encounters. So I mean, absolutely, I don't see why they couldn't. I mean, especially, if it's a flesh and blood animal, it's flesh and blood. Absolutely. I mean, every animal has different color fur, different color, different heights, different everything. So, I'd say absolutely. Why not?
And it's so true. And Robert was saying bleach blonde, and I'm like, yes, this Bigfoot is getting ready for the summer. But, like I said, there's albinos in every thing that I've seen. Snakes, lizards, humans. And to us, like when you look at them, you're like, wow, what's going on with this? But it's like a genetic mutation. And perhaps this albino is because of where they live. It's snowy a lot of the time, so perhaps you get this white one coming out to blend in with the scenery or whatnot. Like, there's no way to really control it. Just like my son, he's got 6 fingers on his right hand. You know, it's a genetic mutation, something you can't control, something that just happens. And so it's very interesting and intriguing to me how these different genetic mutations happen. And I've also seen in the field of not only the paranormal, but space travel. You know, people go into space and their genetics are mutated. People have paranormal experiences and their genetics are mutated, which causes their offspring to have the same experiences. Some people call it a genetic curse, but to me it's just moving down the line for what we need to see, for what's about to happen, I don't know, or different things that are happening in our world that we need to be ready for or open to. There's so many different answers or questions that are unanswered.
Well, there was, ironically, as we're talking about white fur and albino, I'd say maybe a month ago, the founder of New York Bigfoot Society, Gary, actually posted a picture of a white squirrel. And I believe the squirrel was actually here in New York. So without a doubt, I mean, without a doubt, I mean, there's albino in every single species.
Yeah, and for me, it's not that far-fetched. When they said that, I wasn't like, no way, that couldn't happen. I was like, wow, that's amazing that you even saw that, because you don't hear a lot of people talking about albino Bigfoot. But just like with our race, you know, there are very few, but there are still albinos out there. So it's very interesting that that could happen even in the wild, and different things that cause this genetic mutation. And it just puts something else out there for us to investigate and see what exactly is happening. And it's kind of interesting how we had a Bigfoot on this side of the valley and then the albino one on the other. Do the others feel like it's an outcast and so it's on the other side of the valley, or are they in cahoots? You never know, really.
Right. Or it could just be a different species of Bigfoot.
What's that?
I said it could be just a different species of Bigfoot.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, there's so many different ways to look at it, and but I mean, again, I've heard multiple different sightings of light colored Sasquatches running around. So, I mean, without a doubt, I mean, they're absolutely. So. So that was Tessa. I'm sorry, you were saying that was a friend of yours that witnessed the one with white fur.
Not really a friend of mine. We did investigate at the Enterprise, and this was a person that lived in the town of Rico, which is very, very small. So everybody is like friends and family to each other. Everybody's very closely related, but she's like, yeah, you'd never believe this. Like, we were sitting out drinking coffee and smoking. I don't know if it's like, you know, cigarettes or you know, the 420, but they're like, we saw an albino of Bigfoot clear this clearing of aspens, which are white trees as well. In the autumn, they turn to yellow, and then they lose their leaves, but you still see that white outcropping of the bark. It's kind of exotic. I used to, as a photographer, want to paint somebody up and put them in the aspen trees and see if people could pick them out between the different markings of the trees. But seeing that albino Bigfoot go through there was no question in their mind what they saw. They knew it was a Bigfoot and it was albino, and their mind was just blown. And for them to be able to share that and us be able to accept it and make them feel like, hey, you're not crazy, like this could actually be happening, was not only good for us, but for them. You know, because people in this field do feel like they're going crazy, whether it's batshit crazy or whatever. They're like, wow, you know, we saw this. What do you think? And there's no question in my mind that this actually did happen. So it's pretty interesting. And I know there's a Bigfoot where we were working up at the mine. Bears don't do that. Deer don't throw boulders. Bears don't throw boulders. They might knock it down, and you can hear it tumbling, but not being thrown and da-douche into the riverbed, you know. This is obviously something that's used to being there, not used to us being there, and wanting to get us out of the area.
Yeah, no, and with the different folks that I talked to when I was writing Folklore Frankenstein, that was one of the things that some people had mentioned about, you know, throwing large rocks and boulders. There was one encounter where somebody was just fishing, you know, on a river, and then there was this huge splash, and you know, so he started looking around, and he ended up seeing a Bigfoot with, like, you know, picking up huge rocks and throwing it into the river, and he ended up you know, getting out of there as soon as possible because he didn't want to get hit with a rock. And but he said that, you know, he felt like, you know, the Bigfoot was being very territorial, you know, like it was like, I don't know, like it had a kid around or something and just wanted the guy out of there. A lot of those are kind of far and few in between. A lot of the time, you know, a lot of encounters and sightings are brief, and they're just kind of running and just kind of trying to get away. So it's intriguing anytime I hear that, you know, one's sticking around and actually trying to make its presence known, because it's like, well, why would they do that? So again, do they have a family there? Is there something going on at that point in time where they want you out of there?
Was that Dave? Was your friend's name Dave that had that story? Because I have a friend named Dave that had a story like that. He was fishing with his grandpa, and then all of a sudden this Bigfoot was throwing boulders and stuff towards them, trying to get him out of the area, like, you know, this is my mountain and this is my fish, you know, for his family. He doesn't want them fishing there because that is their way of survival, and they don't want anybody picking certain things out, whether fishing or whatnot, because they have a different way of doing it. Perhaps it's just a survival mode. They want you out of there, and they don't want you partaking in their fish. That's their fish.
Yeah, I'd have to look back to find out the gentleman's name. When I was writing the book, one of the biggest challenges was finding. I mean, you can Google search, you know, Bigfoot sightings in every single state and pull it up. I didn't want to do it that way. I didn't want to be putting up in writing, and, you know, because you got to do the bibliography and then recognize this person, this and that. I didn't want to do that. So what I ended up doing was my formula for getting Bigfoot sightings from each state was I would use Google Maps, and I would pull up a state, and I would select a county, and I would pull up a little town in that area, and I would look up every mom and pop diner, every mom and pop like convenience store, and I simply just would make phone calls. And so that's actually how I got my Bigfoot sightings and encounters was, I mean, if the person that answered the phone hadn't had an encounter, they knew somebody that did, because again, it's like these towns, when you call the places that aren't corporate, you're talking to like the real people. So I would have to go back to see what that gentleman's name was.
I think it was David Spinks.
I don't remember off of my. What's that?
David Spinks. Does that sound familiar? He's originally from Summersville, West Virginia, and he's actually been on several different shows. And the one show showed him and his grandpa fishing, and then this Bigfoot started throwing boulders, and him and his grandpa got out of there like, you know, no tomorrow. They were just like spinning out and discussing it, and even though they swore to each other to have secrecy, in fact, later on, David came out after his grandpa died and said, hey, I need to tell you this story. And then his relative was like, yeah, Grandpa told me that. And he's like, he told you that? Like, we weren't supposed to tell anybody, you know? But he's an awesome guy.
Yeah, no, that name doesn't ring a bell.
Oh, wow.
So they
So
went,
similar
but
experience, though.
Absolutely. I do actually recall what you're saying. I did actually see something on TV of a grandfather sitting at a lake and a Bigfoot throwing boulders in. It was probably maybe like a year ago I saw it. So I actually know the story you're talking about. So no, it's definitely not the same one, but very, very similar. I mean, a lot of the encounters from the individuals that I spoke with, we're very, very similar. It was if they were having something thrown at them, different things like that. There were some people, that had encounters, some folks where they had stuff thrown at them, but they never actually saw what was throwing it at them. But they felt it was, from a Bigfoot. But yeah, I mean, a lot of the behavior seems to be, the same, regardless of what state you're in, anywhere across the country. A lot of the behavior is the same, which for me, definitely makes me believe, that they're definitely flesh and blood, because it's behaviors are learned. I don't know a lot about, again, about the paranormal and spirit side, but I definitely feel that they're flesh and blood due to that.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And like you said, it's another experience that kind of copycats the other one. They have different things that they do to try to get our attention and let us know there's something there. And then they'll do other things to kind of scare us away. And I think you mentioned earlier wood knocking. So they'll knock on, trunks or whatever with a log that's fallen off the tree or whatnot to try to get attention or even communicate. And there's different ways they do that as well.
Yeah,
that's
go ahead. That's one of the theories is that they communicate with each other via wood knocking or stone clapping. So it very, and that's again, we talk about behavior. No matter what state you're in, no matter what county, which part of the country you're in, it's the same experience with wood knocks. We at New York Bigfoot Society, we've actually started doing something different when we're out. We actually don't use sticks to bang on trees anymore. We don't use baseball bats or anything like that, because what we've noticed is that any knocks that you get back have a consistent noise. And again, this is just a theory, but has a consistent noise. So what we started doing is we actually started using rocks, throwing rocks at the trees, because with the sticks, depending on the thickness of the stick, the length, how old it is, if it's rotten, you get multiple different sounds. With a rock, you always get that solid, same consistent sound across the board, which it's whenever we get like a knock back, it sounds like the first knock that we're doing. So again, it's a theory on our end. It's something, that we've been testing out, but we're kind of to the point where we don't really believe that they're using sticks anymore, that they're possibly using rocks. And some will say that, primates, gorillas, apes, that they actually use rocks to bang on trees and rocks to bang on other rocks to communicate. So, I mean, why not a Bigfoot?
Yeah, and like you said, they're advancing. Instead of finding different woods and different rottenness and hollowness and so on and so forth, now they're using rocks, and you can use different surfaces and edges to make different sounds. And so it's like, us from writing letters to cell phones or telephones, they're going from wood to rocks. So that's interesting.
Yeah, it's that we've, done it plenty of times, and it seems like we'll get a response when we use that. When we use the sticks, again, it's just kind of hit or miss. The responses since using the rocks have been pretty consistent. And again, we put up recorders throughout the woods when we're investigating, and we'll even leave some out when we're not, and then go back and get them after. And we've got a recording, my understanding, Gary's got it, where it was a recorder that was left there. We were gone, long gone, and you actually hear different wood knocks happening, which is, again, we're not saying by any means that it's absolutely a Bigfoot, because we didn't see anything. We can't confirm it. But it's interesting to hear that when we're not there, as well as hear that same exact noise when we are there. We had this one, I think I'd mentioned this earlier in the show, where the founder of the group, Gary, he threw a rock at a tree. It made that consistent noise, and like 45 seconds later, we ended up getting an exact knock back. And again, we were out in the middle of nowhere. There was nobody around us, and there was no wind, so it wasn't like there was a tree moving and like there was like a cracking noise, which can kind of sound like a knock. I mean, it was the dead of summer. It was probably around 11:30 at night, just a little bit before midnight. And it again, it was clear as day. And we're lucky enough to actually have that recorded as well. To actually hear Gary do the first one, and then again, around 45 seconds later, you hear the second one. And the cool thing about that is I was actually probably 500 yards away with another researcher, Leanne, and we could see Gary because we had like a base camp area, and we had like a fire going, and we could see Gary, and we could see him, throw the rock at the tree. We could see the movement, and then no more movement. So, it was one of those things that, again, when we heard it, we could see that it wasn't Gary doing it. And at the same time, while that was going on, as me and Leanne were walking through one area down this road, it's just this road out kind of out in the middle of nowhere, just this backwoods road. It's as if something was kind of like following us, which was really interesting, because obviously if it's any type of animal or anything like that, it's going to want to get away from us, not necessarily follow us. So we had all that happening all at the same time, which again, we've got on a recording. You can't obviously hear anybody moving around or anything following us, but as far as the knocks, it was a great experience, and we're happy that we've got that recorded. And we do play that from time to time on the NYBS radio show.
So when you got the knocks, did it appear that they were coming from the same direction or different?
They were definitely a different direction. Again, we were about 500 yards up from where Gary was, and it was louder for us than it was for Gary. So wherever it was closer to us than it was for Gary.
Yeah, but I was wondering, was it coming from the same direction, or were there different directions that the knocking was coming from towards you guys?
Oh, it was coming from the same direction.
So have you guys ever tried gifting spots?
Absolutely. Gary does that quite often. Gary's actually he's an avid hiker. He might hunt. I'm not sure. I've never asked him that. So he's constantly out in the woods. So he definitely absolutely does gifting. And we've got our second show for the second season is coming up, and there's actually a lady that actually she investigates a lot, but she actually does the majority of gifting is what she's kind of her thing. So we definitely do the gifting. We haven't done it as much because a lot of the time we're not back in the area for a certain amount of time. We will leave things out. We will leave cameras out. But as far as the gifting, Gary does it a lot more on his own than we do as a group, but we have definitely done it.
So what do you guys use when you leave something? Do you leave like, little Hot Wheels or sparkly things or peanut butter cups?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or big cups. You got to have big cups for Bigfoot.
I was going to say it's the big cups for the big guy.
I can't eat regular Reese's anymore. I got to have the big cups.
Yeah, it really depends. Sometimes it's like I've seen where with like a pine cone and something else. Like I don't know what the importance or the significance of the pine cone was, but I think maybe it was like a Christmas decoration or something. So left stuff like that. Obviously left food, but that was. We had a camera right on it to see if something would come, but multiple different items that have been left behind. I don't know that at this point in time. I know since I've been with the group, there hasn't been any activity with the gifting, but I believe in past investigations prior to me coming on that there has been some activity, like certain things. Being there. Now, this is the one thing that kind of jumps out at me when we talk about gifting. One of the things that in a past investigation that Gary was talking about was he put out a camera and he put, I guess, some melons out, different fruits, and you can see it as it's going. It goes from picture to picture, whatever set it off, the fruit, like, I believe, like getting rotten or whatever. And then all of a sudden, it's just gone. There's nothing there anymore. And it didn't pick up anything. It didn't take a picture of anything. And I don't know if whatever took it, whether it was a Sasquatch or whatever it was, thought it was any type of gifting, but that just reminds me of that story, and that really jumps out. That's something that again Gary's got on video, where the whole intent was to gift, and then again you see it as time's going by, the fruit kind of willowing away and getting rotten, and then all of a sudden the next picture is just completely gone. And when he went to go back and get the camera, it's not like it just flattened out or anything. It was completely gone, and it didn't pick anything up.
And that makes me wonder, like, do they wait till a certain time because there's more nutritional or perhaps medicinal attributes to that fruit because it goes to a certain extent of decay? Instead of having the original vitamins and such, it might have a different makeup. And I don't know, I was kind of being sarcastic in my own mind when I was saying, has Bigfoot learned telepathy? Because I think they can communicate other than just like with sound or tree knocking or rocks or whatnot, telepathically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I guess they very well could. I mean, I've absolutely heard, different encounters where people have actually said that they have talked to, they've talked to Sasquatches face to face, or other ones where they've actually like read their mind. I don't understand how any of that works and how they actually understand to say that, hey, by the way, this is actually a Bigfoot. The only other thing that I've heard of is where a Bigfoot can throw off a low frequency infrasound and make somebody sick Other than that, I've never personally experienced anything, with any type of just being able to read anybody's mind or communicate like that.
And I'm like, where's Angel? Angel, do you have any thoughts on these things we've been talking about? Besides big cups, which are horribly delicious.
Really, the only thing that I have to give is I actually worry that one day somebody is going to really find them. Because I think when that day comes, their existence is over. Because we don't know how to leave things alone. We just don't. And our curiosity and our need for answers is just so intense that I don't think sometimes we don't stop and think, well, what if I do find it? And this could be anything. I'm not just saying Bigfoot. I'm saying, these cryptids, these different creatures that these people go look for, What if you find it? Then what? Then a million other people are going to want to find it. And they're going to intrude. And then they're going to be gone because we can't leave well enough alone. So that's, I believe in them. I've heard things when I was at Hinsdale investigating. Hinsdale, that's in New York, it's so unique in that if you are a sky watcher and you want to see UFOs, Hinsdale. You want to find cryptids, shapeshifters, Bigfoot, Hinsdale. Ghosts and spirits, Hinsdale. I mean, and I've personally, I haven't seen Bigfoot. I've heard things, but to be honest, it very well could have been bucks in the woods fighting. That is a very loud sound. It echoes. It sounds a lot like knocking on trees sometimes. So I'm because I didn't see anything, I just have to chalk it up to that it was, bucks fighting. Right. But I saw my first shapeshifter at Hinsdale. I believed in them all my life. I've studied them. Got to see one for the first time. And it's a memory that I will take to my grave because I just never expected to see it. I didn't go there looking for it. I went there to talk to the ghosts. I didn't go there to see a shapeshifter in the woods. And it was phenomenal. And, not once was I scared. Nothing. Like, I knew what I was looking at. And I, like you guys were talking about with Bigfoot being able to read minds, I don't know that. I can't say for sure about that. But when I saw the shapeshifter, I mentally put out there, I am not here to harm you. I'm not here to disrespect you. This is your land. I'm a visitor. I put that out there. And this thing that was looking right back at me nodded its head. I swear it nodded its head like it got what I was putting out there mentally. And I felt welcomed. It was, if you don't know what you're looking at, or, some people, if they're caught off guard, they get freaked out, they get scared. And that sometimes, whatever you're interacting with scares them because they scared you. I didn't react that way. I was in awe of what I was seeing. And I think it knew that. And, once I put it out there that I'm not here to hurt you, I don't want to disrespect you in any way. I'm here to honor you. Because for me, I always learned that shapeshifters they have Native American ties. And I do believe that warriors are given a special privilege when they pass on to remain protector of a particular area of woods. And I believe when they are given that gift, they can shift between human form and animal form to protect what they were given to do. So that's what I believe a shapeshifter is. So I knew It wasn't trying to hurt me. It wanted to protect the land, you know. Um, but, you know, as far as Bigfoot goes, it really scares me that someday they are going to be found and it's going to be the end of them. Oh, I can't really say that I hope you guys find them. Because if I'm being honest, I really don't want you to. Because
Yeah.
if they're smart enough to stay the hell away from us and do their own thing, let them be. They're smart, you know.
They've been around this long.
Yeah, man, just leave them be. I mean, you know, pictures, do your research and what have you, but when it gets to the point that you're intruding on their homeland and you're threatening their babies and their family, I don't think anybody has the right to do that. So I would never go searching for Bigfoot. If I happen to come across them, I'm a chatty Cathy. I'll sit down and I'll be social as I can, but I would never run back and say, hey, guess what I saw? And I saw him there. Never. Right. I would take that to my grave. I would never tell anybody.
I think there are certain people you keep in like your little circle of people you trust and share things with. And it's kind of like a paranormal family. You know, you've all had experiences and you can share that. You can't share it with everybody because they'll try to take you to the loony bin or, you know, judge you and ridicule you or whatever. But you're talking, what piqued my interest was shapeshifters. And here they're called skinwalkers. And it's more of a native, old magic thing. And in order to be able to do it, you have to take a life. So you're saying warrior, so I can see that. But sometimes it's unintentional, like when you're being born and your mother dies. And that's just kind of part of their religion. Some are dark, some are good.
Right.
How do they look out there, like the description of the one that you saw?
Oh, boy. It was very tall. When I first saw it, it was, I don't know if it was coming into animal form or coming into human form, but when I saw him, I knew it was a male. It had a rigid back like a hyena. So like the very top of his back, his shoulders and his neck kind of had like ridges almost. And he had the face of a wolf. I could see the long snout on him, but the body of a human. And it happened so quickly that in order for my brain to process what I was seeing, by the time I knew what I was seeing, and I knew that, you know, he's standing there in a defensive post, I knew I had to let them know, look, I'm not here to hurt you. And then once I did that and he nodded, it was gone. It didn't like crawl away or anything like an animal. He was just gone. But yeah, it was the weirdest thing because I kind of expected honestly, I don't know what I expected because I never expected to see a shapeshifter, but to see the ridges on its back so clearly and then its long snout, but then the body, it was just something fascinating. And now when I go to Hinsdale, because I'm there 3 or 4 times a year, I always go up into the woods. I make my offering, you know, just make sure that they know I'm honoring, you know, and protecting their woods because it's their land. So people have gone to Hinsdale and have had horrible experiences. But I've also done research and I've asked questions like, because I want to know why. And I want to know why you had such bad experiences there because I've never had that. And it always comes down to they do not honor the natives there. They don't honor the shapeshifter there. And that's a big thing. I mean, I've heard people pull into the place and won't even get out of their car because they feel bad energy. Well,
right. I've been to places like that. I'm just like, I'm not getting out.
You know, yeah. But if you go there with just the intention that I'm just here to investigate, that's in a place like that because there was a massacre there. Over 5,000 Native Americans were killed on that property. They are pissed still. So you
Yes.
better show them, honor, and you better respect them, because if you don't, they are the majority of the energy there, and they will make you not want to be there. I've
Well,
never
and
had that experience, I've
yeah,
always been welcome there.
I think it's because you do go in with respect, and in the paranormal field, I've said that any place you go in, whether it's for the client or the person on the other side, have the utmost respect and have the respect for what happened there or who this person is or was. And
Right.
I think you have a better time with it because they do know that you're there trying to help, basically, or trying to find the answers to
Right.
help them to move on.
Yeah, my first, it's always to help. If there's any of them there that are lost, confused, looking for a loved one, want to cross over, anything like that, that's my intention from the get-go. So that's what I make sure they know about, But that should be your reason behind it. But I always say, when I'm doing lectures at conventions, first thing I always start out with, treat them how you want to be treated. Would you like somebody running up in your house, provoking you, judging you on what you've done in your life?
I was like, get the hell out.
So why do that? Yeah. Like, why would you do that to somebody else? They're dead. They're not stupid. They're not void of emotion. I don't believe that for 1 second. I think when we die, a majority of our personalities, our characteristics, go too. They're there. They linger. So, if you walk up into a house and you know that, say, a murder transpired there, and you go in there guns a-blazing, wanting to attack that ghost, what is that proving? It's either you're not going to get any interaction, or you're going to get interaction that you don't want to deal with. So yeah, I'm very, very particular about when I teach people, just treat them how you want to be treated. Talk to them how you want to be talked to.
Yeah, my two youngest, okay, so my youngest is 4, about to be 5. My oldest is 20. And my youngest is just like, I'm scared. And I'm like, don't be afraid, because you're going to be a ghost someday too. And we get a lot of things in our house, I think because we're kind of like a beacon, but you will be a spirit one day too. And if you need help, won't you want somebody to help you and have respect for you? So I don't know. I think we have people that are experienced, not experts, but try to educate themselves on the way to deal with these things. Then we have people that go out there for fun, for the thrills of it, and they use that antagonization or, poking and prodding.
Right. I have a theory on that too. I think some of them do it because, in all honesty, they're afraid. I think when some people get afraid, that's how they deal with it.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I have something that just happened, but we're going to go to our second musical break, where again we have Tracy Cruz, who is from Oakland, California, with Flowers and Candy and Joyful Rain, and then we have Britt Casey with Main Thing, and Britt Casey is from Boston, Massachusetts. So you guys, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back right after this musical break.
Your love empowers me. It gives me the energy to move beyond my capabilities. There is no limit to what your love can do.
I feel chemistry whenever you're close to me, and I cannot explain your energy, 'cause you're pulling me like gravity. It feels so strong.
voice of some sort. And I'm the microphone. I receive what you say to me.
I like it when you pop it, drop it, swing. Nah, don't stop it, doing that thing. Go, go, girl, keep doing that thing. I just wanna make you my main thing. Keep going, baby, now don't you stop that. Vanilla chocolate flavored, you're the only one that I'm searching for. You the one for me and I can't complain. You sunshine anytime it rain. Not around then I might go insane. I just wanna make you my main thing. I like it when you pop that, drop that. Keep going, baby, now don't you stop that. Honey, you so sweet, I can't ignore. Thinking about you both more and more. Making it pop and drop and swing. I could be the canyon, you my queen. Yeah, you look good, but you I'm saying. I just wanna make you my main thing. I like it when you pop that, drop that. Keep going, baby, now don't you stop that. Who's them dudes in the back with the black on? True deep, don't sleep or slack on. Come to the money, honey, I'ma get a stack on. Excuse me, ma, can I get my Mac on? To the left, throw it to the right. Do it like you wanna do it to me all night. From the block, kid know how to act hard. Like brick house, women with a fat backyard. In the club with me and my man's illin' that. In the back door with me and my man chillin' that. I'm on the floor, I'm like, damn, she killin' that. It's going down, no cop around, feelin' that. I'm fly, I'm a guy that'll get him. Player like me, need two of you with him. Call you a lollipop and I wanna lick you. Number one, my top choice of pick. Yo, give it to me, ma. Go, go, girl. Nah, don't stop. Oh, no, girl. Break it down for me. Get it gone. Can you keep it going? On and on and on. Now give it to me, ma. Go, go, girl. Nah, don't stop. Oh, no, girl. Hey, break it down for me. Get it gone. Cause you got it going on and on and on. Can't deny, boy, that you too fly. Anytime that I look you in the eye, a phenomenon that I can't explain. Like the things you're doing to my brain. You the only one to take away my pain. I just wanna make you my main thing. I like it when you pop that, drop that. Keep going, baby, now don't you stop that. Can't stop thinking about how you move and all the things that I'ma do to you. True, this might be a little bit strange. Don't care if I don't even know your name. That's why I wanna tell you this simple and plain. I just wanna make you my main thing. I like it when you pop that, drop that. Keep going, baby, now don't you stop that. Who's them chicks all thick with the pumps on? Lumps in the front, back with the bumps on. Not a cat hoping that he get his humps on. I'm way beyond with them other chumps on. Sweet enough to eat and he might bite you. When I make love to you, I don't wanna fight you. Nah, body like you, not a one like you. When you come around, no telling what he might do. Right now in the club, who the dawn? Don't a man that got it going on later on. I can tell by the dancing, you digging this song. You can tell I've been digging you all night long. And I love to be digging in you all night long. Party right here, hottie all night. Let's flex it to the coat check, exit to the Lexus, Nexus, triple exit. Come on, give it to me, ma. Go, go, girl. Nah, don't stop. Oh, no, girl. Break it down for me. Get it gone. Can you keep it going? On and on and on. Now give it to me, ma. Go, go, girl. Nah, don't stop. Oh, no, girl. Hey, break it down for me. Get it gone. Cause you got it going on and on and on. I like it when you pop it, drop it, swing. Nah, don't stop it, doing that thing. Go, go, girl, keep doing that thing. I just wanna make you my main thing. You pop it, drop it, swing. Nah, don't stop it, doing that thing. Go, go, girl, keep doing that thing. I just wanna make you my main thing. Vanilla chocolate flavored, you're the only one that I'm searching for. You the one for me and I can't complain. You sunshine anytime it rain. Not around then I might go insane. I just wanna make you my main thing. I like it when you pop that, drop that. Keep going, baby, now don't you stop that. Honey, you so sweet, I can't ignore. Thinking about you both more and more. Making it pop and drop and swing. I could be the canyon, you my queen. Yeah, they look good, but you I'm saying. I just wanna make you my main thing. I like it when you pop that, drop that. Keep going, baby, now don't you stop that. Can't deny, boy, that you too fly. Anytime that I look you in the eye, a phenomenon that I can't explain. Like the things you're doing to my brain. You the only one to take away my pain. I just wanna make you my main thing. I like it when you pop that, drop that. Keep going, baby, now don't you stop that. Can't stop start thinking about how you move and all the things that I'ma do to you. True, this might be a little bit strange. Don't care if I don't even know your name. That's why I wanna tell you this simple and plain. I just wanna make you my main thing. I like it when you pop that, drop that, keep going, baby. Now don't you stop that.
When I met you, my life changed. Your love rained all over me. It was blissful, so special, essential. Life poetry, true beauty. We created, we made it. Reality, pure affection with expression. A connection was meant to be. You make me feel so good inside, like therapy for my mind. You make me feel so good inside. It was like flowers and candy, understanding how you're standing really must be love. I'm talking true, I'm talking real, and I felt it in my heart. It was like flowers and candy, understanding how you're standing really must be love. I'm talking true, I'm talking real, and I felt it in my heart and soul. You make me feel so good inside. You make me feel so good inside.
Now what is this that's happening? I don't even know you anymore. Oh, yeah. Changes moving through every day. Yeah. And I don't even know what we're fighting for.
Our bright days turn to sleepless nights. Our loving ways have turned to endless fights, and we can't seem to compromise. We try so hard to make things right. Yesterday, we'll erase
Welcome back to We Are Paradox Media's Late Night in the Rockies. So grateful to have you guys here and listening. Tonight we have Mr. Kenny Irish and Miss Angel Ray. You guys, welcome back and thanks so much for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Hey, Tessa.
So, we were talking about the different backgrounds you guys have as far as writing and so on. How exactly did you guys come to meet or be friends?
I'll let Kenny answer. Keep him up.
Okay. All right. No, absolutely. Absolutely. Like I mentioned earlier in the show, I was with a different publisher not long ago, and was kind of wanted to do my own thing and not deal with any agents. So, looking through different publishers and what they offered, I was looking, kind of more independent. I didn't want to deal with any of the big fives anymore. So I ended up coming across Dark Moon Press, pulled it up. There was a couple authors on there that I had actually heard of that I really respected. But, you never really, I didn't want to submit until I had actually had some feedback. So I just randomly just went on and looked at the authors that they had on there. Not the ones who, I had been familiar with, and I picked Angel and just reached out to her and just said, hey, can you just kind of give me a rundown of your experience so far with this publisher? And ever since then, we've been talking, and I'd say we've been friends.
Yes, I see you, Poppy.
Did you have anything to add to that?
Who, me?
Yes.
No, not really. I just I'm glad that he reached out. I don't know why. We've had quite a few authors, for whatever reason, have contacted me, and then I get a hold of Eric. I don't know why. Eric, our publisher, is not a scary man. He really isn't. He's probably one of the most gentle, kind men that I've ever met. But for some reason, people approach me, and then I just send their information over. If they fall in our, we don't. I don't think we accept any manuscript at all. But considering, what he writes about, I thought Kenny would fit in perfect. So, and he has. I was right about him. Eric likes him. So, yeah, he thanked me the other day for sending him Kenny. So, I'm like, sweet. Yay, I did something good. I like to help people. I'm not one of those, people are just doing this for me. Like, if I can help somebody, I'm going to help them, So.
Well, yeah, and Kenny's into Bigfoot and stuff, and you're into erotica and different books like that. Can you tell us about the different books you've written?
I just put out my 32nd book.
Holy shnikes.
I've really, in the last 5 years, all I've done is write. I got the flat butt to prove it, because it's called writer's butt.
Right.
And when you sit because I would get in the zone, and most days I write between 16 and 18 hours a day. And that's really normal for me. So putting out 35 books in 5 years really wasn't anything. But I found that when I started out, it was nonfiction, and then my publisher says, "Hey, Michelle Bollinger, do you know who Michelle Bollinger is?"
No.
Okay, she started out on Paranormal State. She's been on several TV shows. Right now, she is.
That's my most favorite. Is like my original paranormal show.
Okay, well then you would know Michelle. Michelle is the very tall woman with the short hair that they would bring in. She's always dressed in leather.
Mm-hmm.
That's Michelle J.
Okay.
Her and I are friends. She's the reason I got published, actually. But yeah, I have no idea where I was going with that now. My dog's barking at me, and I'm just what? Okay. So yeah, he says Michelle is putting out a anthology, and it's erotica. And I said, okay. He says, do you want to take a stab at it? And I said, nope. Like, nope. Never did it. No, About a week goes by. I get another message. We really need somebody to write a story. We don't know who else to go. Michelle's very picky. Just try it. And I said, how long do I have? He says, a week. I said, are you kidding me? A week? He says, yep. I said, all right, I'll try. So I sat down, this was 8 o'clock in the morning, did not stop until 10:30 that night, and I had written my first short story. Submitted it. It was in the book. And that's when this was after my third nonfiction book had been published, that he came to me with the fiction. And apparently I had something in me that I didn't know. Just started writing like crazy, and the book started selling, and women were just, because I write, they're not unrealistic characters that I write about. They're very real and relatable, and women really love that, so my writing career just kind of took off with the romance and erotica and the fiction. I got bestsellers in both categories, so apparently I'm doing something right.
Well, that's awesome. I'm so glad that's working out for you. And the more you talked about her, the more I could see her in my mind. She's got the short reddish hair and the distinct nose. And
yeah, Michelle, she's amazing. She just bought a house in Oberlin, Ohio, and I was one of the first people that investigated it. And,
I was about to say, it's got to be haunted, right?
Oh,
you get
man,
a good deal, and you get all that extra.
Yeah, it's probably one of my most memorable experiences there. But when you're sitting in a basement, and there was only one other person with me, we're not moving, we're actually looking at each other, and I'm asking questions to the spirit that's down there. And out of nowhere, this loud bang, so loud that we thought a gun went off in the basement. And people that were outside waiting for us to get done with our investigation could hear it and said it sounded like a shotgun going off in the basement. It was the loudest thing I've ever heard in my life when I've been investigating. And the line of questioning that we had going on we're trying to figure out how this person died. And when they spoke back to me and said that they had been shot, I said, did you see it coming? Did you know it was going to happen? Your death. That's when the loud bang happened. It was
like
last
minute, not expected.
Yeah. Yep. So I gave her that, and her and her wife listened to the audio and were just floored that even happened. So Michelle is amazing. She really is.
So do you think this person is stuck here because of the whole aspect of, they didn't expect it to happen? Perhaps at first they didn't know they were dead, then they realized they were, and they're not quite sure how to move on to other places? Perhaps they're kind of stuck there for a bit?
Not this particular one. I think this one, not stuck, but wants to be, because I think they want their story told, and I think it's unresolved. I hate to say they're unrest, because that's the cliche for a ghost, that they're unrest, but
right.
I think this person just really wants the story to be told, and take the time to let them tell you, because it takes forever for somebody like that to tell you what's going on. Because if you're not asking the right questions or you're not giving enough time for them to answer, there's so much that you can miss. So it's really investigating. I mean, that's where that word comes in, most definitely.
Right. So when you
but
do
I
investigate, do you like use different tools, or you're just using your intuition and different things like that?
I always go with my own tools myself first. Pick up on, where the most energy filled places are, and where, if I'm somewhere and I feel that a spirit is lost or confused or sad, I'll stay in that area and then I'll bring out my equipment. But not starting out, no. I like to use my own abilities first, and then I bring the equipment out for validation. So
Yeah, I like it better that way as well. And instead of doing your homework first and then going in and see if it lines up, I like to go in and see if things line up to the story and then find out later what the story actually is.
Right. Yeah. Yep. Yep, I agree. You still there, Kenny?
I am.
Okay. So you would never ever go on a paranormal investigation with me, Kenny?
Like I said, I'd carry the equipment and maybe sit behind computers.
He'd be the camera guy.
Other than that, I am big scaredy cat. I go out in the woods looking for something, that's 9 feet tall and weighs 800 pounds, but that doesn't scare me. But ghosts and spirits, that definitely sets me back a little bit.
Is it? I have a question. Is it because, when you think of Bigfoot, you think it's something that's solid, that you could touch, that you could see and interact with, but a spirit, you don't always see them. Do you think it's the fear of the unknown is what scares you?
I think it's the fear of, I guess, I'm not concerned about a Bigfoot attaching itself to me.
Right.
With spirits and stuff like that. I mean, my understanding is there's always there's always that chance. So I just that crap just kind of scares me. So I kind of don't want to deal with that.
And I think a lot of people feel the same way, but for me, I find comfort in the fact that there is something on the other side, and
right.
We're all going to be spirit someday, or energy, or, whatever. It's
right.
interesting, intriguing, and at the same time comforting.
I think religion plays in a lot of the fear with the supernatural, too. I really do. I think if you were brought up in a religious household that, demons and, the devil and Satan, and if you're taught that those things exist and that they can do this and that and the other to you, and of course you're going to be afraid as an adult to, like Kenny said, he's worried about that attachment. I'm not saying I don't believe that demons exist. However, I don't believe that, let's say, Satan is hiding out in a closet in Ohio. You know what I'm saying? That really, really bothers me when people are using equipment and, the word devil or Satan or Lucifer, whatever, something like that comes up on an ovulus. You know what an ovulus is, I'm guessing. Okay.
Yes.
So say that word comes up. If you are a Christian, Catholic, and you believe in the devil and hell, what is that word going to do to you? It's going to freak you out. It's going to scare you. And the spirit knows that. So if they can get you out of their house by saying Satan's in the closet, they're going to do it. You know what I'm saying? Like again, it goes right back to my point is they're dead. They're not stupid.
Well, I
But
think a lot of times when you hear those words, like for me, I think there's some sort of relation or something involved with that situation that happened or whatnot. I don't automatically think, oh, the devil is trying to communicate with me. Like I have had an experience just like my mother did in the very same room with the devil, but it wasn't in the closet. But yeah, he's not going to come through an ovulus or something like that. I think it's just something in relation to it or something along the lines of what that story is, which kind of brings me to apps on your cell phone. The most interesting, intriguing, and in-depth information I ever got was from a cell phone app called Ghost Radar Legacy, because Legacy actually records the word. Classic just shows you the words but doesn't record it. And we set up our equipment and everything, and the words Kate Johnson, Walter Intention Death, Sharp Tool, so on and so forth came through, and we found out later on her name was Kate Johnson. She was a prostitute from Alamosa. She fell in love with a firefighter. He took her onto the train, and they were going to elope, and then the brakeman found them together, and a fight ensued. He got stabbed to death. She was raised Catholic, even though she still didn't partake in such, but she believed in purgatory, so that was kind of her purgatory, being stuck on that train car. And of all things that released her was a Catholic school class with a prayer of release from purgatory. And she was gone for about 3 months, but I think on this side as well as the other, you have free agency or the right to make your own decisions as far as what you're going to do. And she came back to protect a little girl spirit that's there. But it was cool how it came through, and a lot of people poo-poo like paranormal apps on cell phones. Like, how could this actually work? But it did. But that's the only time it really did. Otherwise, you get words here and there.
Yeah, we had almost the exact same experience at Hinsdale. My first time there, we were using the phone app, but it's the Ovulus. I think it's called Ghost Box, I think is all it's called, but it's an Ovulus where words came up. And we were sitting there. There were 3 of us in the kitchen, and the first thing that happened was we heard something move behind us. We weren't sure what it was. You can hear me in the EVP recorder or in the digital recorder say, "What was that?" My friend Laura, she turns around. She says, "Oh, it was the ice chest." Up on the Ovulus, the word ice come up. So I asked the question, "What was that?" But I was talking to the living people. But the ghost answered me and said it was ice, and it was the ice. It was shifting. It was melting in the cooler. Then a couple minutes later, we had 3 names come up, Elijah, Abby, and Landon. We assumed that they were 3 first names. The next day when we get home from Hinsdale, one of the people I worked with did some research and discovered that there was an Elijah and Abigail Landon that lived in that area, and their names came through. So we had 2 first names and a last name, and they were brother and sister. And from that moment on, I was like, okay, you guys can call this stuff bunk all you want, and maybe 90% of the time it can, but if a spirit has enough power, why can't it manipulate something? If it knows you're looking to that device to get answers, why can't they manipulate it? You know?
Yeah,
so
where there's a will, there's a way.
Yep. So I thought that was pretty cool. And it's cool that you had the same kind of experience with it, because it's amazing when things like that happen. You know, it's not coincidental. You know, it wasn't a coincidence we got Elijah and Abby Landon in an area that we don't even live in. So why, you know what I mean? It was them trying to communicate with us. So I think that's awesome.
So Kenny, in the field of Bigfoot research, what sort of tools do you guys use? Do you ever use like EMFs or anything like that?
Mostly, we mostly use like trail cams and recorders. We do have the other equipment, for different things, but we don't use it when we go out on Bigfoot hunts. The parent company of the NYBS is Tri-City Paranormal, which Gary also founded. So he has all kinds of EMF meters and all kinds of different things like that. But usually when we go out, as far as anything, I mean, it's a lot of recorders that will put out trail cams in different areas where we have different places set up where we think there's different activity. And then obviously you've got your any hiking equipment that you would have, which is if you're into EMF meters and all that stuff, hiking equipment will be very boring to you.
Well, it's important. You got to have certain things.
Yeah, it is. It definitely is. I mean, obviously, we go out, we've got like the headlamps, different things like that. But and then geez. I'm losing a train of thought. I'm getting tired.
Uh-oh.
We do. Yeah. Oh my God, I can't remember the name. I can't remember the name of it. Oh my God. Can you tell me when you go into a place and it picks up heat signatures?
It's like a FLIR camera.
There you go. Yeah, we use those as well. Seriously, I'm usually in bed by by this time, like I've already been sleeping 6 hours. So
I just sent in the message board here on our call a picture that we have of Kate and Emmy, and Kate Johnson is the ghost that I was telling you about, but a picture of them on a motion sensor camera, which is what you use on the trail. And then the other one of Walt is actually from a cell phone through a crack, and he reminds me of the Joker. He's really creepy looking. I don't like him. But it's interesting what you can catch on there, and a lot of times people say that these motion-activated cameras kind of put off some sort of high-pitched sound or something where the Bigfoot can sense it, and a lot of times you won't get pictures of the Bigfoot, but the camera can be ripped down or actually even sometimes disappear. Have you guys had any luck with the motion censored cameras?
Not by getting a picture of a Bigfoot. Obviously, we've seen all kinds of different animals and everything, but I have heard of that where there is a theory that there's a certain hum or a certain noise that cameras or any of the electronics inside that will actually make that a Sasquatch could potentially pick up on, and it might even be like a dog whistle to them.
Yeah,
where it makes them avoid going by it or in that area.
It's interesting. It's definitely like recently here in Colorado, they had a picture of what they said was Bigfoot, and it's near a roadway or highway, but it's a weather camera, and they show a picture of Bigfoot near some smaller pine trees trying to trek across, and people are saying that's not Bigfoot, it looks too much like a human. But like we were saying earlier, I think they're human-esque. They're part of the lineage of all these different hybrids of humans that came before us.
That was the DOT cameras, right?
Yeah.
That was just recent, right? Yeah. I mean, because they had a couple pictures that they put out, and one of them was definitely a hoax and fake. Because when you pulled the cameras up a few days later, like on one of them, when like all the snow was gone, the figure was still there.
Yeah.
Which turned out to be a cutout. Then the other one that really jumped out at me was with the figure walking. What I don't understand, it's supposed to be a DOT camera, and all DOT cameras are pointed out at actual roads.
Mm-hmm.
And this wasn't a road, this was like a field.
Next to a road, you couldn't really see the road.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, that's a real hard one. Considering they were putting, cutouts up in front of, because that's what one of the pictures ended up being, was a cutout. The fact, that people are putting cutouts up in those areas and the DOT was aware of it.
Right.
It just makes me think that, that other thing is, it's just a hoax. Somebody out there walking. The other thing too is, I can't say for sure when I watched the video that it looks back at the camera. But that's one of the big things, like in the middle, it just kind of stops and looks back, and it looks like the figure looks towards the camera, which would be really odd. I mean, if you're a Bigfoot, why are you going to look back and look towards the camera? So
right.
There's just a lot of it there that for me was just like, one of your pictures was definitely a hoax. Then you're putting this out. It for me, the whole credibility thing goes out the window. And nowadays, I mean, with a lot of the Bigfoot shows on,
right.
Everybody's talking about how, a Bigfoot walks, how it does this and how it does that. So,
like, how do you know?
Anybody could pretty much, yeah, and that's the thing. The thing is like, if this is how everybody's saying like a Bigfoot walks, well, the person could just, be pulling a hoax and just be walking like one. So, unfortunately, I don't put a lot of faith in it. And the other thing too is when you watch it, at one point, you actually see like part of like the figure, its leg or part of it just kind of like disappear, kind of skip like it could be potentially like there wasn't anything there and somebody just had the video and just kind of like put that in there.
Right.
So there's just a lot of red flags in that video that jumped out at me. That's just like, I don't know. Well,
that kind of reminds me of the Phoenix Lights and how so many different people saw it. People, a part of the government, different pilots, so on and so forth. And then later on, they had this whole press conference where a person comes out dressed in a alien costume, and they make a big joke of it. But years later, the governor or mayor of that town eventually came out and said, yes, it really did happen. So I think when things do happen, not saying it's real, not saying it's not, but people try to poke fun at it and do different things like it to make it less serious or less believable, to put some sort of doubt out there.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely a possibility. And that's the sad thing is like, you do have people that literally have nothing better to do with their time, but to go out and try to, something that could be potentially real and, go out and try to make something that isn't. And, unfortunately, there's so many stories of that. At the same time, I try not to let those stories get in the way of wanting to know the truth. Because, I mean, again, there's so many of them. And the other thing, too, is there's some that have been, claimed to be a hoax, but yet no one can figure out or come up with the evidence of why it's a hoax. It's just, somebody posted something that said, okay, no, this is the hoax, but yet there's no evidence backing up the fact that it was a hoax and that it didn't really happen or what it was. So, it's just, the Phoenix Lights. I remember that. I believe that was that late 90s?
I believe so. Yes.
Is that right? Yeah. So, but I've heard a couple different things on that. But I mean, I mean, again, it's just sad when people have nothing better to do but try to, make something up, or when something potentially really does happen, do something to try to, take credibility from it.
Yeah, if they're gonna take that much effort to fake evidence, why not just use that energy to really find the real answer? It just never made any sense to me.
Yeah, it's just like that whole Bigfoot in the freezer from years back, where those guys. It's one of them was a cop too, from my understanding, and they had the suit and they had it in there and they stuffed it with different I guess meat and animal organs, and it's just like, what are you doing? It's just like, just stop. What possessed you to do that? And even worse, to think you're going to get away with it. It's just crazy, especially something like that, when people are going to be able to come in and you're saying, hey, I got a Bigfoot body here, and then people come in and they're going to look at it, they're going to examine it. It's just that, I don't know, it's just crazy. So again, I try not to let things like that kind of interfere in what I'm doing, because there's always going to be people that are going to hoax, that are going to try to become famous by saying this happened or that happened, and but it's just like when you watch some of the Bigfoot shows, and like the show Finding Bigfoot, you had a lot of witnesses on there who were legit. They really saw something, and then you had people that just wanted to be on TV. Regardless, I'm not going to let the fact that people who just wanted to be on TV take away from the fact that there was definitely people there that had valid encounters, and it's the same thing with the Phoenix Lights or anything else. It's there's always going to be people out there that are going to try to pull something off, and really, the energy should really be spent on something else.
So, talking about Bigfoot and the Phoenix Lights, do you think that there's any way, and a lot of people say that Bigfoot and aliens are in league with each other? Could they be other dimensional, or is there, perhaps somebody saw Bigfoot being abducted? You never know what's going on there. Have you heard any stories like that along those lines?
I've heard, that there are certain groups that are trying to link Bigfoot with UFOs. Again, it's one of those things where, we can't even. Sure. Is there a possibility? Sure. I don't know. I've never seen enough on it in order to even come up with anything that I'd even be comfortable really even stating. Mm-hmm. I would say that would be more of a viable theory than Bigfoot, being a ghost. And mm-hmm. reason being, like I knew, correct me if I'm wrong, ghosts don't normally leave big footprints, in hair samples and different things like that.
Right.
So I'd be more apt to think that, if there was a theory in between them being aliens or actually paranormal ghosts, I'd jump on the alien bandwagon.
I'm losing my train of thought too. I had another question to follow that, but what about fairies? Do you guys believe in fairies? And I've heard a story from a lady here in Colorado who's contacted me several times and told me of different interactions or things that have happened on her property. And she thinks that the fairies and Bigfoot are in league. And I think I mentioned it earlier, like the fairies are the brain and the Bigfoot is the brawn. And there's actually evidence of Bigfoot inside of her house, like smudges on the windows or whatnot. And I heard you, Angel, say, yep. What are your thoughts on that?
I most definitely, I've seen them. I've seen fairies. Since I was a little girl, I have Polaroid pictures of me. We used to go to this place called the Warren Light Center, and it was just a sacred place. UFOs, Bigfoot, anything supernatural was drawn to this area. And my mom was taking pictures. I was on an old swing set, and you can see little beings underneath my feet playing around me, just little elementals. But I've seen them my entire life. I put cream out for them during the full moon. I leave them sugar cubes. I've just always grown up believing in them, and I've seen them. I've seen their energy sources, and I've seen them lit up in the grass. I've seen them in the trees. They play in my garden. But I've never linked them to Bigfoot, ever. I think that they can cross in between our realm and theirs, and I think very few humans are permitted to visit them and see them. I don't think everybody is supposed to see them. I think certain people do, for whatever reason. It could be the energy, it could just because you believe in them, I'm not sure, but I've never linked them to Bigfoot. But I do believe in them both, I just don't link them.
Kenny, any thoughts on Faye?
Yeah. I mean, I've never personally, seen a fairy or anything like that. I have heard that actually brought up the fairy and Bigfoot theory. Again, I don't know. I've still yet to see a Bigfoot. So, again, there's always that possibility. There's because there's sightings all the time and encounters of Sasquatch all the time, but yet nobody can actually pin them down. So, why not?
Yeah, and it's crazy because people are like, well, you had this experience. How did you not get a picture? Like, I've had things happen in front of me where I try to get my cell phone back in the day during this certain experience open and get to the camera part of the phone, and I'm just so full of adrenaline and so fidgety, like there's no way to do it. And so the next best thing is to call people over to witness it with you. So at least you don't feel like, you're hallucinating or whatever. But it's so hard to pin it down with pictures. Experiences are personal things that people have, but actually having the footage or pictures to prove it is quite difficult.
Right.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I mean, you can always be as ready as you think you are, but I mean, when it happens, it happens, and I mean. That's the thing. I mean, I've got a cell phone on me. I've got the camera ready to go. But if it's standing right in front of me, I say to myself, the first thing I'm going to think of is grabbing my camera.
Right.
But again, I haven't had them right in front of me. So, I could very well have one right in front of me and just be like, you know what? I got to get out of here. I got to get out of here. I got to turn around. I got to get away from this thing. I just don't know at this point. But obviously, my plan is to have my phone ready. My plan is to have the camera ready. But anybody who doesn't take one, the only time I question it is if somebody says that they see multiple multiple Bigfoot. But, and, hey, they live on my property. I see them all the time, this and that, that's when I question it. And then, I'll ask, well, how come you haven't gotten a picture, and then they'll say, well, I haven't gotten a picture because I'm trying to protect them. I don't want people to see them, this and that, which is all fair and good. But, when you're also talking about it, like on Facebook and in public groups and, with all your personal information and where you live and all this and that. So those usually throw up some red flags for me. But again, my goal is to absolutely, pull my phone out or camera or whatever and get a picture. But until I'm actually faced with one face to face, I don't know how I'm going to act.
Yeah, it makes me think of those teams that go out with cameras on their shoulders and cameras on their foreheads, and that's when you can actually see things in real time instead of facing the camera one way and looking another. It's documented the way you see it generally. That might be a good idea, in the future for teams that go out, putting a GoPro or something on and seeing if that helps. Because a lot of times, even though you don't see it, you can feel it. Something's there, and perhaps this camera on your shoulder or chest or forehead can capture that once you go through the footage.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely.
That's usually the way it works with paranormal investigating. You don't, I'll sense something and I'll feel like something's there, and I'll snap pictures and something will show up. But 9 times out of 10, if you capture something, it's luck. It's
right.
It's you know what I mean? I'm not going to have my camera out in the woods and say, okay, fairies, pose for me, and then I'm going to get pictures. It doesn't work like that. They're smarter. So I think if, we get evidence, it's typically by accident, just right time, right place. I have images when I was at Waverly Hills. I didn't see it. I was just I felt that I needed to be taking pictures in an area, but I hadn't seen anything with my own eyes. It was just a feeling. And I took 6 or 7 pictures in succession. And I had my camera on burst, so it takes pictures every 2 seconds. Okay. I take 6 or 7 pictures. Don't see nothing in these pictures. Don't see nothing at all till I get home and upload them. And lo and behold, there's a shadow person. I mean, I caught a shadow person. They were no bigger than 4 foot tall. The people that we had on our team that night, nobody was 4 foot tall. And then there's in the first 2 pictures, there's nothing. And then all of a sudden there's this head. You can see the head, you can almost see the hair, and it's walking away from me, and then it must have noticed me. I didn't notice it, but it must have noticed me taking pictures, because in the pictures it should be going forward. When it turns and looks at me, it goes back then, and then in the last picture, it looks like it's hiding and trying not to be seen. And I didn't see any of it. I mean, in 7 pictures, you would think that something would catch my eye as I'm taking these pictures, and no, not till I got home and looked at them. So that was definitely by accident. But that was probably one of my best captures I've ever gotten. Because there was nobody there that was 4 foot tall. This thing was so dark. I mean, I don't know if you've ever been to Waverly Hills, but there's no electricity. It's just dark. So, it still amazes me. I go back and look at them pictures now, and I had put them in one of my books because, I'm not big on pictures. Like I told you earlier, Tessa, I don't put evidence out there unless I know for sure, that it's something. And somebody had said something to me about my first book. Well, why didn't you have pictures? Why didn't you have more pictures? Because ghosts don't just show up in pictures. It's very rare.
Say cheese.
You know, so yeah, you know, like, so I'm not.
Let's be realistic.
Yeah, so that I'm not going to put, you know, pictures in there unless I know for sure that I've captured something paranormal. So, yeah,
it's funny how they peek around the corner, you know, expecting that somebody's going to see them. And I've been watching different shows on YouTube, like Franco TV. He goes to these mausoleums, and there's one where the head peeks out, and it's so creepy the way they peek back in, like they're watching you like every second of the time that they're going back in. But they don't want to be seen, but they want to see, you know, is this energy really coming? Who is it? What's going on here? And I don't know. Just because it's a dark figure, to me, doesn't mean it's bad. I think you can take different energies and portray yourself that way. Sometimes it's dark energy, sometimes it's light. But however you can manifest is the way you do. And it's pretty interesting. And he even looked in there. There's nobody in there. So it had to be. And it was like you said, it was only about 4 feet off the ground. Was this a child or, you know, somebody on their knees or whatever? I think it was a kid during this certain experience, and perhaps in yours as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because there were kids at the TV clinic, so I really don't know. But it kind of opened my eyes a little bit, like, you know, to kind of pay attention to my intuition. If I feel like I need to snap pictures in that direction, then I need to do that and, you know, not question myself. So it was a good lesson for me, no doubt.
For sure. Well, you guys, we are in the last 3 minutes of the show, and our listeners are just wondering, how do we find you? What's a good place to contact you and find the different works you do and the different evidence that you guys have collected, as well as your books? And we'll start with Kenny.
Okay.
All right. First off, you can go to my website, which is www.
Excuse me.
You all right?
I'm sorry, I need water.
No worries.
Oh. The first method is you can go to my website, www.kwirish.com. Again, it's kwirish.com. And from there, you can get updates on events that I'm going to be at, as well as any news with any book releases. You can also go to darkmoonpress.com to check on books and get different information, as well as you can go to the Facebook page for New York Bigfoot Society, and from there you'll be able to we post evidence, different findings on there all the time, as well as we do our radio show, and you'll be able to get updates on when that's happening. And you know, again, any evidence we come across, any findings, if we find them to be, you know, legitimate, we'll put them up. We'll talk about them, and we'll go from there.
Angel?
The best way to get a hold of me is through Facebook at Angel Ray 11, and you can get me on Facebook and Instagram at the same username. So it's just ANGELRAE and the number 11. If you go onto that page on Facebook, on the pinned post is my website. It has all my books on it. Links to Amazon. If you want them signed, you can send me a message, like a personal message, and I can ship them out to you. As far as evidence goes, I'm kind of funny about that, because when I go into locations, it's to investigate and help. It's not really to showcase evidence, I guess. So there's really nowhere you can go. I'll share them every once in a while, but for the most part, I write about my experiences. I just don't like to showcase it. You know, I'm not trying to impress anybody. I'm just trying to help the ghosties, you know, and learn. Always, I'm a lifelong student, so.
Well, thank you guys so much again for being my guest tonight. It was awesome hanging out with you.
Thank you. You get